Well, I've known Matt Pearson for a couple of years. You've seen him in some of the gun shows we've done for InfoWars Nightly News with Shane and Sid Steiner, my high school buddies. And he's the head chef over at the Steiner Steakhouse. I love getting out there when I can to eat one of his ribeyes, best out there, period. But that's not why he joins us in this segment and the next. Matt sent me a text this morning saying he was listening to the show yesterday where I was talking about the article that's up on Infowars.com that Drudge carried on Friday. Breaking, U.S. Army trains for martial law in U.S. And we have all the links in the story where they admit it's, quote, for the Tea Party, gun owners, you name it. And then they admit other drills in other states where, quote, the scenario is gun owners attack the city because their guns have been banned. So they're getting ready to ban guns, start a civil war. That's undoubted. This is treason. This should be the top story. I'm trying to force it out there so that we can have a national debate about it. But he was a heavy machine gunner in the Army for many years before he got out and went to chef school. So I wanted to get Matt Pearson, who did a lot of mount training. He offered to come on and just give his take on this story and the difference, because people are like, well, you need to train for urban warfare. Yeah, they have facilities for that. This is for America to acclimate. Go ahead, Matt, tell us your take on this.
Hey, Alex. Yeah, you know, the Army has mount sets like this, dozens of them all over the place, and they've got them pretty much every different scenario out there. I know that I did one in Fort Sherman, Panama. It was a jungle warfare training facility, and I guess probably the one that's the most well known in the States is at Fort Polk, Louisiana. It's called the Shugart Gordon Complex, and it's a big fake built city where we actually did drills that involved an opposing force that was the soldiers that were stationed at Fort Polk, basically played the enemy. And then we actually had some of their soldiers that would walk around like civilians to kind of create a real-time scenario where you would have to, watch your fire to make sure you weren't taking out innocents. And, they range in from complexity to anything from just walls being built up with windows and doors so you can kind of learn to maneuver in and out to actual standing buildings. But the one that they've built, this one in Virginia, I mean, this thing looks like a city. It's full out buildings. Looks like it's got running water and churches and a football stadium and everything else. So this one's built up like nothing I've ever seen. But I've kind of been reading up about it, and they're saying that it's been in plans for quite some time. And I guess this thing right here looks like they're going to be doing some pretty serious stuff in it. But at the same time, the Army is always trained in situations like this. But the one that really kind of sticks out is this one that just happened where they've talked about going after Second Amendment supporters. This is the one that's kind of...
Yeah, you're talking about Ohio story last week. Sure, that's the main drill now. We just report it when it's in the news. They're training, Matt. The main enemy is now Christians, conservatives, gun owners. Look at that colonel that wrote for Esquire saying, they're coming after us.
Right. Yeah, I've never, the one thing I can honestly say is I've never in my life heard, when I was in, had ever heard of anybody training to fight against Americans or singling out a special group like Second Amendment enthusiasts. I mean, it's like you said, it's treason. That's not training, that's treason.
Well, that's what we call the piece, training for treason. It's so outrageous that they're really doing it. Did you see the thing out of Fort Hood a few months ago where they said that anybody in the Tea Party would be court-martialed?
No, I didn't see that, but that's nonsense. I mean, no, I haven't read anything about that.
You were getting into the fact that Nancy Pelosi and Big Sis and Napolitano listing returning veterans as the #1 terror threat. I mean, this is the branding of us as the new enemy. And in these Army videos where they talk about the new Asymmetrical Warfare Center, this new city, they say, well, we're preparing for what we think the next threat is. So then they're getting ready for the next war. West Point has training manuals now where they say the next war will be with the Tea Party. I mean, this is crazy, Matt. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, to get back on the point I was talking about, it seems to me that they're really trying to paint veterans and soldiers as bad guys to maybe kind of sway the public's opinion on them. I mean, I think that's pretty crappy to call somebody that volunteers to serve for their country, and that's what we have. We have a volunteer military. We don't have a draft going on right now. We don't have a situation like in other countries where you're pretty much you're required to serve 2 years. I know there's a lot of countries in South America, and like even when I was in Korea, those guys, they have to serve 2 years. The day you graduate from high school, you go into the military, whether you like it or not. It's not like that here. We all volunteer to go serve our country, and we do that because we're proud and we're American, and it's in our family and it's in our bloodlines. I mean, my dad is a Vietnam vet. You know, there was no question what I was going to do when I got out of high school. I knew where I was going to go. So to do that, and then to have some dingbat call you a terrorist, man, that pulls on the heartstrings a little bit. And then you have all these little stories coming out about how, so-and-so veterans have PTSD. They need to have their guns taken away. And then on top of that, now you have all these stories breaking about how Americans are, soldiers are training to fight Americans. It seems to me like what they're basically trying to do is paint a picture saying, hey, the troops aren't the good guys anymore. And that's not the truth at all.
Oh, I agree with you. It's a very sophisticated psyop. It's like the federal training to make cops do bad things, and then it demonizes the police, which drives them into the hands of the feds. They want to use the troops while they're in and then have them demonized once they're out. And they're going to autonomous vehicles now. They're getting rid of the humans the next 10 years. And so that's what this is all about, is phasing out the men, period. And it shows that they'd like to stage some events and try to use the military against the American people. I just don't see that ever working, Matt.
No, that's never going to work. That's not going to work. But it's like you said, they are trying to phase out people, get a robotic military-style army because, like I said, the Army is made up of your, people that are your brothers, your mom, your dad, your cousins, your friends.
Hey, briefly, tell me about your buddy at Fort Hood talking about they got a memo about don't visit certain websites.
Yeah, there was a memo that came out a while back, and it was like you were saying about the court-martialing for being a Tea Party contributor. But, yeah, it was the same way. Don't be caught on the Drudge Report's website. Don't be caught on the Alex Jones show, stuff like that. They're kind of cracking down on stuff like that. But the thing about that is when you sign your name and you join the military, you do kind of give up some of your rights. That's just the way it goes.
No, I understand, but it's like saying don't read the New York Times. I mean, it's not like they're saying don't read North Korean propaganda. I mean, of course, they've been doing that to me for over a decade. All that did was get the military to be our biggest audience early on. Because you tell them, don't go visit this website. I mean, what's going to happen? Finishing up with my friend Matt Pearson, who did a lot of mount training and was involved in that in the Army. He was giving us his take on this Virginia center that has churches, you name it, $100 million to build it. And it's got, DC signs in it. It's clearly for urban warfare in the U.S. It's this new mission for, quote, domestic terrorists, which they say are the Tea Party. But he had another wrinkle to it in closing. Matt, tell us.
Well, I was just saying that there's a bunch of different reasons why they could have it. The number one reason being where you're going to train is where you want to be the most realistic for what's at hand. And I think that really the most serious problem I see that we could have on our soil right now is the fact that we don't have any border security along the Mexican border, and we have a problem with drug cartels, and I have a feeling that that's probably going to end up surfacing pretty soon. I'm nothing but a glorified fry cook, but if I can see the problem with it, then the government probably knows about it too. And I have a feeling, with everything that's going on with legalizing pot and messing on cartels' business, toes, pretty soon we're going to start having issues with it. I got a buddy that's a APD drug task force. He says they're stumbling on different cartel stash houses every day trying to do low-level marijuana busts. So I'm hoping that that's what it's for, because like I said, I don't ever see the military taking up arms against its own people. In my lifetime, I don't see that happening.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Matt. We'll talk to you more soon.
Sounds good, man. Have a good one.
Introducing Pro One. All of your filtration in one system, portable, on the go. No more do you have 2 or 3 filters to just reduce sodium fluoride. You have a system that cuts out the sodium fluoride and up to 95% of hydrofluorosilicic acid. Advanced manufacturing technology combines silver-impregnated white ceramic with new Aquamedics advanced media for removal of fluoride and other heavy metals, all in one filter element. It is the only one that does it, and out of the gates, this. We have it discounted at 10% off with promo code WATER. This is the only system that in one unit helps reduce or remove pesticides, herbicides, chloramines, ammonia, and chlorine, hydrofluorosilicic acid, the most common form of fluoride not covered by other fluoride filter brands, and sodium hexafluorosilicate. Get your Pro Pure with the new Pro One filter today at InfoWarsStore.com or by calling 888-253-3139.